What if everything we thought we knew about Earth's history was built on a flawed timeline? Today, we're digging into a theory that proposes a completely new biography for our planet, one that ties together dinosaurs, the flood, and even our own civilization through a single world-shattering event. Let's get into it. It really all starts with a question that just doesn't make sense under modern physics. I mean, how could a creature like Quetzalcoatlus, weighing as much as a small horse with a wingspan of 11 meters, actually get off the ground? Or how could dragonflies from the Carboniferous period be the size of modern-day hawks? These things feel impossible. And according to the framework we're exploring, the answer isn't that the creatures were weird, it's that the entire world was. So, to solve this puzzle, we have to kind of erase the Earth we know today from our minds. We have to imagine a planet that was fundamentally different, one that operated under a whole other set of physical rules, a lost world where the impossible was, well, entirely possible. Okay, so the first huge difference was the air. In this proposed pre-flood world, the atmosphere was maybe twice as dense as it is now. For a flying reptile, that's a game changer. It provides way more lift. At the same time, the oxygen levels were up around 35%. That kind of supercharged air could have easily powered the metabolisms of gigantic insects and other massive life forms. But a different atmosphere is only half the story. This framework also suggests a global network of water underneath the Earth's crust, held at such incredible pressure and temperature that it became supercritical. Now, here's the crucial part. Basic physics tells us that adding mass inside a sphere, under the crust, doesn't increase the gravitational pull on the surface nearly as much as adding it to the outside. The result? You get a much more massive planet, but with lower surface gravity. And when you put all of that together, what do you get? Scale. Just massive scale. Lower gravity means 100-ton sauropods could exist without their own weight crushing them. Denser air let giant reptiles actually fly. High oxygen fueled those bird-sized insects. And get this, a stronger magnetic field, which would have been amplified by that subcrustal water, could have protected life from cosmic radiation, maybe even allowing for the incredibly long lifespans you read about in ancient texts. This different world really does seem to solve the gigantism puzzle. So, if this world existed, where did it go? According to this theory, it didn't just slowly fade away. It was wiped out in a single catastrophic event known as the Great Rupture. Now, the trigger wasn't something sudden, like an asteroid impact. It was actually a really gradual process. You know how you can bend a paperclip back and forth? Each individual bend doesn't do much, but eventually the metal gets weak and just snaps. Well, in the same way, the moon's tidal forces kept flexing the Earth's crust over and over, creating tiny microfractures for thousands of years until the entire crust was basically primed to shatter. And when one of those fractures finally broke through to that super high-pressure water reservoir, well, the result wasn't a leak, it was a planetary detonation. An instantaneous, explosive release of energy that's almost impossible to comprehend. To try and put that into perspective, think about the asteroid that wiped out the dinosaurs. Now imagine 246 of those hitting the Earth at the exact same instant. That's the kind of energy we're talking about here. This wasn't just some regional disaster, it was a global reset button. This crack didn't crawl, it raced around the planet at nearly the speed of sound, circling the entire globe in about 3 hours. And that 65,000-kilometer-long mid-ocean ridge system that crisscrosses our planet, mainstream geology says it formed slowly. This framework says it's the scar from that one single event. The consequences of this rupture were immediate and almost astronomical in scale. The entire surface of the Earth was remapped, but not over millions of years. We're talking days. You see, all that supercritical water blasting out from under the crust acted like a perfect lubricant. So the continents didn't slowly drift apart. No, they hydroplaned. They would have been moving at meters per second, fast enough to open the entire Atlantic Ocean in just a few days. It's a radical idea compared to the slow crawl of continental drift. Just look at this timeline, it's pretty wild. Within 3 hours, the planet's crust is fractured. Over the next 40 days or so, the continents slide into roughly their current positions. And it took about a year for the massive floodwaters from that subcrustal reservoir to drain away, revealing a brand new planet. Here's something really cool. As all that water was expelled, the crust collapsed inward a bit. You know how an ice skater pulls her arms in to spin faster? It's the same principle, conservation of angular momentum. The Earth's rotation sped up, and the length of a year changed from a perfect 360 days to the 365 and a quarter we have now. And the effects didn't even stop at Earth. This framework suggests that tons of material got ejected from the rupture at hypersonic speeds, so fast it escaped Earth's gravity. It proposes that this debris went on to form the solar system's comets, that it bombarded the moon, explaining why the near and far sides are so different, and that it may even make up part of the asteroid belt today. One event on Earth with consequences for the whole solar system. So if you accept this physical model, you then have to go back and reinterpret all the evidence we've collected, from the rocks under our feet to the very code in our DNA. And this table really shows the stark contrast. In the mainstream view, the fossil record is a slow story of deposition over ages. In this framework, it's the result of one giant flood rapidly sorting everything by density and shape. Dinosaurs aren't from 65 million years ago, they're the giant fauna of the pre-flood world. And civilization didn't start from zero, it was a reboot, using knowledge carried over by the survivors. Proponents of this theory point to evidence they say the standard model just can't account for. Things like polystratus fossils, basically fossilized tree trunks standing upright, cutting through rock layers that are supposedly millions of years apart. And even more striking is the discovery of soft, flexible tissues and red blood cells in dinosaur bones. From a chemical standpoint, organic material like that just shouldn't be able to last for 65 million years. But it makes perfect sense if the burial was rapid and only thousands of years ago. This framework also offers a totally different story for early humans. It suggests Neanderthals and Denisovans weren't different species at all, but just a branch of the human family that had adapted to harsh, high-altitude life. After the rupture, Noah's family, who survived on the Ark, eventually encountered these highland survivors near Mount Ararat. The two branches of the same family came back together, and that reunion is what left behind the 1 to 4% Neanderthal and Denisovan DNA found in many of us today. And this all builds to the theory's most profound and controversial claim, a challenge to the way we measure time itself. What if the clock we've been using is fundamentally broken? According to this framework, an event like the rupture makes radiometric dating completely unreliable. Why? Because it violates the two most basic assumptions of the method. First, you have no idea what the initial conditions were. Rocks formed in that chaos would be a jumbled mess of elements, not a clean starting point. And second, the systems weren't closed. That supercritical water would have acted like a universal solvent, flushing through everything and contaminating the very samples we try to date. And radiocarbon dating gets hit with a double whammy. On one hand, the huge pre-flood biosphere would have diluted the amount of carbon-14 in the atmosphere, so living things started out with less of it, which automatically makes them look older than they are. On top of that, the stronger magnetic field would have blocked more cosmic rays, meaning less carbon-14 was even being created to begin with. Both problems push the calculated dates way, way back. So to wrap up this perspective, the conclusion is that the physical evidence, the shape of the ocean floor, the tissue inside fossils, the code in our own DNA, has been telling this story the whole time. The data itself was never wrong. It was just the interpretive framework we were using to understand it. And that really leaves us with one last massive question to think about. If a single planet-altering cataclysm reset every single geological and biological clock, then what if all the evidence we've ever found was right all along, and the only thing that was ever wrong was the clock?